Michael, how are you doing today, sir?
I am good, sir. Long time no talk. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. Really excited to reconnect and chat with you today. To
Mhm.
get started, why don't you just take a moment and tell us a little bit about your practice and what you specialize in?
So we run a fee-only registered investment advisory firm, which I think a lot of other firms do as well. But we have a very unique specialize in tax planning, a complex tax planning, and I think a lot of other firms would say, "Wow, we specialize in tax planning as well." I have an accountant on staff. We file tax returns for clients, so when I tell you we get into tax planning, projections, estimated tax payments, Roth conversion strategies, Medicare IRMAA management, that's what I do 5 days a week and sometimes 3 to 4 times a day.
So you are neck deep in tax planning. Yeah.
That's our unique value proposition. We work with people who are either retired or very close to retirement, and the our ideal client doesn't have an income problem. They have enough assets that yeah, I guess they all worried about income in retirement and making sure they have enough, but their biggest problem is taxation, and then passing the money on to the kids properly. So that's the ideal client for us, and that is what we are solving for.
So I want to get a little bit more into that. But first, maybe you could take a moment and share with us a little bit about your story, kind of how you got here. What inspired you to do this? Help us understand, like, um, maybe how you got started.
Yeah, well, I got started completely by accident. I went to school at Suffolk University, which is a school downtown Boston, which was kind of great. I got to go to a lot of Celtics games. It's right next to it, and a lot of Bruins games. And we had a job fair, and I was a junior at a time, and I paid security guy $20 to let me in, and I had like 120 copies that I made at Kinko's. If anybody still remembers what it is,
Yeah.
and I was just literally passing out my resume because I wasn't supposed to be there, and that's how I landed my first job at Fidelity. And I worked at Fidelity for about 13 years, bounced around, did a lot of cold calling, a lot of sales, just kind of learning the industry, and then I ended up in the West Hartford Center. I'm in Connecticut, so I ended up in one of their branches and
Mm-hmm.
kind of learned the ropes a little bit about high net worth planning, portfolio management, that type of stuff. And then eventually I was just sitting there saying, gee, you know what? There's got to be more to it than just, products pushing and selling things and so on, which I was pretty decent at, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I was doing real planning. And at one point I just decided that you know what, I'm either gonna sink or I'm gonna swim, and I just decided to leave Fidelity, and I didn't tell my wife when I resigned.
Oh, oh no.
Yeah,
That's a little
yeah.
that.
On top of all
Yeah.
of that, she was pregnant when
Wow.
and
Yeah, you
my
like
wife
living
is
on the edge, don't you?
she's an opposite of me. She's like very by 9 to 5, very by the book, doesn't like to rock the boat. So, needless to say, it was a little bit of a challenging time frame, but I thought I made the right decision. I wanted to do better planning. I wanted to help people in a much better capacity than I was able to do. I think Fidelity is a great firm, but I wanted to go deeper, and here I am.
Love that you took the risk. Love that you took the leap, and I love that you were brave enough to not tell your wife. So maybe you just waited until you started to get a little bit of traction with the business before you told her. Hopefully, maybe you had some
That would have
strategy
been the
there.
right thing to do, Greg. That would have been the right approach, and I would not recommend people doing this. But you can't fix you can't fix stupid, as my wife would say. So here I am.
Yeah, yeah. So my wife's a lot like yours. She's very consistent, very kind of by the book, but she's not. She's very risk averse.
Yes.
I'm more like you. I'm the opposite. So we
So
make
you
a
get
good
it.
team. Yeah, I get it. We make a good team. Um, all right. So I appreciate you telling your story. How did you end up settling into tax planning specifically? This probably wasn't something that you, because this is a very narrow um, focus, which is um, obviously very strategic. How did you settle into this?
It's a good question. When I just started, it was just basically like any other firm. We wanted to go out, do some retirement planning, use a Monte Carlo simulation, and then just manage money. That's really was the objective. And and as we continue to go through it, one of the things that I really wanted to, and then we were very generic, right? If you there was no minimums, if you're willing to work with us, with me at the time, uh, you were a good client. And we were just trying to build back up to produce some income because, as you know, we were getting into red and into red, and you keep spending your savings because this is not an easy business to be in. So once I got some traction in it, one of the things that I learned is like, how do you stand out? How do you do better work? I always felt that retirement planning, which is really what we specialize in, not very few firms actually do tax advice at the level that it should be done at, right? Very few firms ask you for your tax returns. Very few firms understand and guide you on what qualified versus non-qualified dividend is. How do you avoid capital gain payout by mutual funds? How do you asset locate positions, right? So I always felt that there was a lot more to retirement planning and to the complexity, but I really didn't know much about, okay, how do I get there? So I started to take classes. I discovered Holistaplan. I went through lots of training with Holistaplan and some of the other systems that we're using, and took a lot of work, a lot of studying. You know what the interesting thing is? We had a client that reached a prospect that reached out to us about two
Hmm.
weeks ago, who I spoke with in 2017, which is a year into
Wow.
starting this journey.
Yeah.
And I pulled up the old emails and sort of the conversations that we had back in the day, and I would not hire myself back then, knowing what I know now. It was just kind of such a surreal moment for me to go back and say, "Gee, it's been almost 10 years,"
See how far you've come.
and see how much
Yeah.
of an evolution took place from where I was to where I am. They're coming on board now as a client, but purely because of that extra alpha that we grew around tax planning. So it was just kind of interesting aha moment for me.
Yeah, I love that. It's part of your story, part of your journey, man. Um, it's funny. I can imagine the realization where you read your own email from 9 years ago, and you're like, "Ooh, this is rough."
I
I
was
w-
cringing. I
yeah,
literally pulled this up in our team meeting. We have a team meeting every Monday morning from 9 a.m. We have a team meeting, and I pulled it up and I said, "Listen, here's the presentation that I put together for these people. Here's the email. Zero tax planning. Everything is centered around portfolio management. Very basic Monte Carlo view." It was so, as the teenagers in today's days say, cringe. That
cringe.
I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh my goodness, this is just."
yeah.
We got a good chuckle out of it.
Well, it's good too. I with my team, a little self-deprecation is always good if you can make fun of yourself and also point to the fact that your team is much better than you were for sure, probably, and let them know they do how you guys have evolved. All right, I want to thank you for sharing your story and what
Yeah,
more about what you do. I want to talk a little bit more about your clients and the people who
sure.
you work well with. So you do tax planning, but maybe you could take a moment to kind of to describe the typical person who comes to you.
Yeah. So our typical ideal client is an individual who are either retired or 5 years from retirement or so. And we have $1 million minimum at this point in time. We're probably going to push this higher, but the typical client that we see is between 2 and 10 million. That's usually what we sort of come across as far as asset level is concerned.
Hmm.
And they really don't have, I mean, they all want to know whether they have enough money to spend in retirement. Many of them, I think that retirement consists of three stages, right? I always say that: go years, slow go, and no go. And many of our clients want to front load their retirement. They want to spend more money up front because they understand when they're older.
What were those three stages again, Michael? I'm sorry. You
No
broke
problem.
up for
It's
me.
go years, slow go, and no go. That's essentially how I describe it, right? So when you're
Interesting.
younger, you have
Yeah.
more energy, you want to do more things, but as you progressively get older, you just become less energetic, most of the time. So the ideal client for us is somebody who comes in and says, "Gee, I want to be able to support this lifestyle. I want to give to charities, right? I am passionate about charitable giving. I have kids. I want to be able to help them now rather than wait till I pass away and not really see them enjoy the money, right? That's also a really big one for us. But the biggest issue for them is I have an enormous tax problem. And what's interesting is many times they understand that there's a tax problem, but they can't verbalize what it is, right? They get it, they
Interesting.
read enough about it, they understand what a required minimum distribution is, they understand what an IRMAA bracket is, but they know there's a problem, but they cannot verbalize it and put it on paper. But they need somebody to help them understand it. So for us, that's the ideal client that's looking to solve that problem as a primary issue. Um, yeah, it's
Okay.
been really good for us so far.
All right. I love that. I love the no, the go go, slow go, and no go. I
Feel
love
free to
that.
use it. It's not trademarked.
Yeah, it's not trade. I want to understand a little bit more about your clients. So they realize they have this situation. They can't necessarily articulate it as
Yeah.
you explained, but they probably attempt to articulate it to you when they meet with you the first time with the questions that they ask. So, what are some of the questions that your clients typically ask you when they meet with you for the first time? They're not necessarily clients yet, and maybe they're just trying to get to know you. Maybe it's the first meeting. Um, what are some of those? What are some of the things that they ask you?
It always starts off with, okay, well, they don't even necessarily know what to ask, right? So usually it starts off, well, gee, do I have enough assets to retire? Do I have enough money? Where do I spend the money from? I have three different accounts, right? I have an IRA, a Roth, a brokerage account. Where do I pull my money from? What about Social Security? When do I kick this off? If I'm married, do we change that a little bit? And then usually we're pretty good in identifying sort of an ideal client for us. We've done this for a little while. So I kind of stirred the conversation up to an area. I said, okay, well, do you know what required distribution is? And they usually go, yeah, I know what that is. And well, do you know how that's going to potentially impact your situation down the road? They understand that it's taxable, but they don't understand the weight that they are going to have to lift because they've done, such a good job saving in their 401k accounts and the assets are growing tax deferred. They don't understand what tsunami is coming down when they turn 73 or 75. So I almost proactively kick this conversation off
Mm.
because I know that it's there. It's just they're not proactively asking about it. So many times I just have to kind of pry them a little bit. But as soon as I do, it really opens things up because now it's a conversation that nobody has really had with.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sure having that conversation with him for the first time leads to a lot of positive in a lot of positive directions. Um, let's talk about so as you've done this, you've been doing this a while. Um, Oftentimes when I interview people, they share certain situations that their ideal clients are typically in, and oftentimes these fall into buckets. Um, we don't have time to go into all of those today, but maybe pick one. What's a typical situation that they're in that they need you to lead them through? A situation that causes them to initially reach out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So I'm gonna answer this question by saying something else. So most of our clients come to us from our seminar marketing. So we run classes every month like a clockwork, sometimes twice a month. And the classes are based around taxations, specifically concentrating around on Roth conversions. So most of the time when somebody is sitting in front of us, they are coming from our class engagement. So they have already heard me speak, for about an hour and 15 around taxes and what required distributions can do to you. How is it going to, change your Medicare IRMAA bracket? That the armor IRMAA brackets, that the Medicare IRMAA is based off of Maggie versus it's not from Aggie, and all this terminology, right? that they've never heard of. It kind of piques their interest, then they come in. So if I had to pick one bucket, that bucket is okay, Mike. My required distributions are going to be X. We can help him figure out what that is. How do we minimize that? How do we get myself to a 10, 12% marginal tax bracket? How do we utilize Roth conversions potentially as a unit or as a way to pay the taxes now? Because you're going to pay taxes. Well, there's no way to avoid paying taxes. It's illegal. I tell them all the time. Um, but how do I minimize it? Because today is the least amount of money I'm going to have for the rest of my life. Is there a benefit for me to doing it? Is there a break even? When is it? How does it help my family? They don't, they have a 10-year rule. The kids are going to have to take the money out. What happens when one of the people passes, spouses passes away? Now you have a
Hmm.
widow's penalty where the other spouse becomes a single filer. How is that going to impact her if I don't do any tax planning? So
Hmm.
if I had to put one bucket in, which is hard to do, I'll probably say the Roth conversion and the tax planning around it is probably the number one thing that we try to tackle with
I love that. Sometimes I'll ask this question, and it's hard for some people to delineate and specifically describe this in a way that's easier to understand. And I think one of the reasons you're able to do this is because you've been doing this a while and you've settled into this, and you have a good mental model around how to think about your ideal clients and the solutions that you provide them. So I love that. I want to talk more. I want us to get more into how you work with your clients in a little bit, but I'd like to take a step back for a second and learn more about kind of your vision and where you're wanting to take your practice over the next couple of years. So when it comes to your practice, where do you see it in the next 2 to 3 years? What's your vision? Are there any goals you're working on?
It's funny. When I just got into this, all I wanted to do is get to 50 million under management, have an admin, and be done with it. Meaning that just have a really nice lifestyle practice, and just do everything that I wanted to do. But it's just not my personality. We just started to grow and started to grow. Next thing you know, I have 3 offices. I have 8 people under me, and then we have about almost 400 million under management, and we just keep going. So about 2 years ago, we had a conversation with my team, and I said, "Well, where do you guys see us going?" Because I have my thoughts, and it was universally we want to go to a billion. So that
Wow, they
that came
totally
from
one upped you. Wow.
it was completely on that. When I have Chachkas in the office, road to a billion is a really big thing for us, and that's the goal. We grow at about 30% year over year. We probably add about $100 million of new assets on annual basis. So we'll probably next year or so we'll hit half a billion, and then we're just going to continue to roll. So 7 to 8 years, $1 billion under management. I'm going to create a separate tax planning practice, maybe bring a couple of more um, accountants on staff. But and I think what's driving that, Greg, is not the monetary compensation part of it. Is that the fact that we do such good work and it's so meaningful to us and it's really meaningful to our clients, where we feel like more advisors should do what we do, and there are quite a few of them that do, but majority don't necessarily go as deep as we do, and I feel it's a detriment for the client. So, and I'm only 48, so we're gonna keep rolling.
Yeah, you're a young buck still in your prime. So it's kind
Indeed.
of like it's become more than what you even envisioned when you first started.
By
And
a
it's
mile.
it sounds like you've created a culture where you have a team who knows that you do such great work and the impact and knows that the impact you have over your clients. And it sounds like this has turned into a conviction to grow so that you can serve and help more people.
That's exactly what it is. And you know what I love about it? It's not me telling them to do it. It's the whole team is behind it. And we rolled out EOS internally earlier this year, which
So,
really,
for people who don't know, EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a
yes, sir.
framework to keep everything kind of organized within your business, have internal goals, and execute on those goals with your team. So, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure that we explained what that was really quick
No, no, no.
for
I
everybody.
appreciate it because that's, to me, and we haven't really fully implemented it, but we were able to write out our value propositions, identify much clearer our individual clients, what makes us unique, our VTOs, all of that helped us really make sure that we're all on the same team. And rowing and hiring is so much simpler now, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the team is pushing all of this. And for me, I'm still, I believe in work-life balance. I encourage them to take time off. I certainly follow through with that. But when we
Hmm.
hear, Danielle on my team right now, she's got 6 or 7 onboardings happening right now, and
That's exciting.
she's
That's fun.
busy.
Yeah.
She's busy. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you're really busy. I find that you kind of in many cases, not all. You're like, man, I just need a break. And then if you're not busy enough, you're like, man, I'm so bored. So
yeah.
it's the combination of being busy but also believing in what you're doing is a very exciting thing. So it's cool that you have a team who's a part of that and they feel like they're almost being swept up in this kind of thing. Anything standing in your way, like any particular challenges that you're struggling with, or see yourself possibly struggling with or running into as you work on this goal? Anything stand out to you?
I will tell you, my biggest struggle, Greg, is not uh, is finding the people who have the right attitude. Because I can teach you stuff, right? We can train you, right? There's many different ways you can be involved at our firm, right? From marketing, like we in the process of building out Monday.com as part of our unique system to use internally. So there's many ways that you can find. One of the things that EOS helped me is to kind of identify what somebody is really, really good at and make sure that they do only that and they're not really doing anything else. But finding the people that have the same passion as we do and do it because they are passionate about. We have the prospective client the other day that called us to tell us that they want to move forward with us. It was a relatively high value client, and all of the sudden I was in the meeting, and all of a sudden I hear them cheering, and they're all excited because we are growing, and we can really help this person. So finding diamonds like that, that's
Yeah.
my biggest issue. Because if you bring somebody in who's not a good fit for the culture,
Hmm.
that just it becomes a speed bump. And
Yeah.
that's my biggest obstacle, be honest with you. Because everything else, we have a great marketing process, we have a phenomenal prospecting process, great onboarding, we have systems in place, that we've built out the infrastructure to be successful. It's finding the right people.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a universal problem. I think when you're cultivating a culture and you kind of have a mission, you want to make sure that you're bringing in people on your team who believe in it and
Yeah.
are great fits for that. So,
I will tell you how I'm solving it. Like, if any other advisors who are listening to this podcast want to kind of get some ideas, I don't believe in hiding things. I mean, I don't believe in secrets. There's 360 million people in this country. You need a small sliver of them. Uh, so what I've done is I've built out a robust internship program where I have probably like 30 or 40 resumes that I get for the summer, and then we go through a very extensive interview process, and then the individuals that come in, they around us for 3 months, and that allows us to, because you can say a lot of things during the interview process. You can be a good BSer, right? You can say stuff, but your words speak loud, your actions speak louder than your words. And over the 3 months, something is bound to come out. And like, for example, I had Gabby on my team. She was an intern over the past 3 months. I just hired her because she's a phenomenal fit. And
yeah.
because I can train him. I much rather you have spend my time and resources training you, getting you the CFP, sending you to the conferences, right? Doing all that stuff because you can learn these things. If I can learn it, anybody can learn it.
Yeah.
But it's your attitude that I can't. It's unfixable. You are who you are. The people don't change. That allows us to really clearly see how somebody would react in certain situations and how they interact with the team and so on.
Yeah. I like that. So you give them a framework to follow, right? Like the internship process, and you get in real time, you get to see how what their attitude is like, the work that they produce, and how hungry they are to learn and to grow, and how open minded they are. I love that. I love that. That's what you're looking for, the people who want to be trained and are excited about what you're doing. All right. So, what I want to do now before we end in the next couple of minutes is I really want to understand what it looks like to work with you. So, maybe you could take a moment to walk us through your actual process. So, if someone were to become a client today, what does onboarding look like? This is something that I know that you said that you're proud of. You have a good onboarding process. So maybe you could talk about what happens during onboarding. What happens the first couple of weeks, and then maybe go into what does it look like after onboarding? What does it look like to work with you over the course of a calendar year? Could you
Yeah,
dive into that for us?
sure. So our prospecting process, I guess, and I hate that word, but that's basically what it is. We usually have two meetings with a potential client. We have a discovery meeting, and if it makes sense, then we have an assessment meeting. In the assessment meeting, we provide them with what I call the retirement planning light. We understand that it's a really big decision for them to hire somebody who will be responsible for their financial future. So we want to make sure that they understand what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what the fee is going to look like. So by the time, and then during the assessment meeting, we tell them, go home, think about it. We don't need quick hits. We're looking for long-term relationships, right? So after the assessment meeting, when they go away, we followed up with them a few times and we let it go. If they decide to become a client, we schedule at least one onboarding meeting. Sometimes the complexity is so long, we need to have multiple onboarding meetings with them. But usually, one onboarding meeting works. When they come in, so when they schedule the meeting, they get an email from us with our ADVs attached, telling them everything that they need to bring with them.
Hmm.
Beneficiaries, voided check, so there's like a lot of stuff that they need to have with them when they come in. When they come in for the assessment meeting, we spend about 10 minutes letting them know what the paperwork process is going to look like. We custody through Fidelity. We tell them that we're going to open up a bunch of DocuSigns. We're going to send them some stuff. They're going to sign some stuff. We're going to send them our contract. They're going to have to sign that as well. That's the administrative part of the equation.
Yeah. Got to do
That's
it, right? It's
right.
boring, but you got to do it. Yeah.
That's
I
what it
also
is.
want a quick note before you
Yeah,
continue. I like that you're working with Fidelity and you came from Fidelity. I think that says a lot. Anyway, go ahead.
it is interesting. It's good to be on their platform because I understand it really really well. But it is kind of like
Right.
a full circle for me. You're right.
Yeah.
Um, but so when they come in, we spend a little bit of time on the administrative part of the equation. And then we usually jump right into planning. I want to dial in their retirement plan. I want to dial in their Roth conversions. I want to see what their projected incomes are actually for the year. We ask them to bring their pay stubs if they're still working. We use a system called Holista Plan. If you are not using Holista Plan, you are missing out. I can take a pay stub, scan it in, and it projects out all their income for the year, but it also projects out their federal income tax, state income tax that they're going to pay. So
Hmm.
if we're going to do a conversion in 2026, for example, I want to know whether they're going to have to pay estimated taxes or we're going to have to withhold from the conversions. Most will pay estimated taxes. Well, that conversion becomes part of the income for the year. If they're working and they're paying federal and state income tax, we got to back that out so that they don't overpay on their estimated payments. So it helps us tremendously. So we spent quite a bit of time in the first onboarding meeting figuring out what is their plan going to look like, what is their asset allocation going to look like, and roughly what the plan would be once the assets are start to come in, because we use asset location, meaning that if they have a bunch of different accounts, we don't go 60-40, 60-40, 60-40. We go in and we say, gee, we have a Roth account. We're going to load that up to be 100% equity. And then we're going to be a little more conservative on the other side. So we put tax alpha even in our trading platform, if you will. We use Black Diamond. So we spend some time there. We get their buy-in. We understand what the process looks like. And then we schedule a 30-day follow-up. In 30 days, they come back in. The objective there is to say, hey, do you have access to Black Diamond? Were you able to get into Fidelity? Did you have any issues seeing everybody's accounts, right? Here's what we've done so far with your assets. Everything came in, everything is on board. Now we started to make some adjustments. Here's some of the things that we've done for you so far. And then we put them in a regular cadence. Like regular cadence for us is quarterly meetings. So we
Nice.
proactively
Nice.
send
Nice.
them out and invites. We let them know that if we don't see them on the schedule, Tina on my team will start harassing you till you either get on the phone, I mean Zoom, or come in, because we do want to see you. We can't do our job if we don't stay on top of your stuff.
Yeah. So you're very proactive. I like that.
Extremely
And
proactive.
you want to make sure that you educate and the client understands kind of what things look like, what their accounts look like. They can wrap their head around it.
We want them to be comfortable with that. And then listen, sometimes they have complexity to their situation where we also don't want to sit there for 3 hours and onboarding meetings either. So we would set up a follow-up for them to come back in to continue the onboarding discussions if necessary. Usually one meeting is adequate for us because we are prepared. um, I would say 90% of the time. 10% of the time, we might have to have another meeting for them and so on. But we're always available if stuff comes up. If there's a NIGO on TOA, or if something is happening, we'll just get them on the phone. If we need to do 401k rollovers, we schedule a time for them right there and then to do a conference call. So we just kind of organize it, and then we use our workflows to track it all.
If you do a quarterly meeting, I know some advisors will say we do a minimum of one meeting per year, and that's required. But I like the quarterly, man. I think a lot can change in 3 months, and if anything, it's a good just idea to just check in and get on the same page, align, see what you're working on, and see if anything's changed. So I really like how you structured everything, how you educate the client, make sure they're comfortable and they understand what's going on. So, all right, let's land this plane, Michael. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing us with telling us your story, how you serve your clients, a little bit about your vision, how you work with your clients. So, for somebody who listening who wants to get in touch with you, what should they do next if a client's interested, a potential client's interested in learning more about you and possibly having a conversation? Where should they go? What should they do next?
The best thing to know is two things. Number one is we're not salespeople. We're phenomenal planners. So just by reaching out to us, it doesn't mean that we're gonna try to sell you anything. You either a fit or you're not. And if you're not, we'll be the first one to tell you that. So the best thing to do is to go to our website, milestoneamg.com. There is a free assessment button right in front of you. Click it and schedule an introductory 30-minute Zoom call with me. And then from there, we'll figure out what we do. You don't want to go see a foot doctor for a heart problem. We want to make sure it fits. And if it does, then we'll explain to you what the next steps look like and so on. But our website is the best place to go to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Michael. I appreciate you.
Anytime, Greg. It was good to see you, my friend.
You too.